Hey guys, recording this here on what is it, Friday the 19th. Maybe you're seeing this on Monday at the latest, but want to let you know we are almost sold out for Founder 500 in Austin, Texas here in about a week. It's going to be an amazing event, 500 B2B SaaS founders. I'm looking at the attendee list. There's almost 60 founders with more than 7 million bucks in ARR. It's an incredible group. There's over 100, over 150 with more than a million revenue. It's an incredible group. You don't want to miss it. Grab your hotel, grab your flight, grab a ticket right now. I'll put the link in the bio, in the description here on YouTube. And I think there's only about 3 tickets left. Okay, about 3 tickets left. I'd love to see you guys there. Don't be bashful. Grab your ticket now. Hey folks, my guest today is Alex Thimel. Usually I read off a thing and I go, okay, what bio did they give me? But I can just speak from the heart with Alex, man. This thing started, I met this guy, it's got to be over 4 years ago at this point. And I've learned a couple things about Alex. Number one, a guy runs an incredible SaaS conference called SaaS Doc, which is coming up here shortly, October 17th and 19th in Dublin, that you want to check out. But never challenge this guy to any sort of beer drinking. He will not only drink you off the stage, he will dance you off the stage, he will sing you off the stage, he will take over the stage. Alex, are you ready to take us to the top?
I'm ready, Nathan. I'm ready.
All right. So give us the quick background. Obviously, you've got the big event coming up here in about 3 or 4 weeks, but what year did you put on the first SaaS Doc?
Yeah, it was 2016. September 2016 was the first SaaS Doc. We pretty much worked on it for a whole year, 12 months period. I had no prior conference experience, but having set up a SaaS blog and podcast, the SaaS Revolution show, then done some local SaaS meetups and looking for that entrepreneurial thing to do. The community and the audience that I built sort of back then was saying, why don't you do a SaaS conference? And I was looking for that entrepreneurial thing to do, and it kind of all came together. Obviously, the limiting factor was zero experience in conferences, which obviously was a big challenge. But I had that blind entrepreneur optimism that kind of said, well, look, it's not going to be rocket science and I'll be able to do it. But obviously I learned a lot of hard things along the way. But, given 12 months to work on a single event, we spent a lot of time, doing there and grafting to get 700 founders from, I think 34 countries to the first conference. And I'd say the rest was history, but, there's a lot of history, in between that time. But that was the first one, 2016.
We were joking before this, we were talking about it's hard to run a VC fund. It's hard to run a SaaS company. I mean, I will tell you, I've had a SaaS company. Founder Path is it's not VC, right? It's debt. We don't take equity, but it's kind of the same. There's a fund we manage there. And then also we now have a mini event. Dude, events are maybe the hardest because of just the nature of the pressure. For example, in 2016, do you remember the initial check you had to write to reserve the space?
Do you know what? It was super small initially. But I kind of got, I said hoodwinked into it, or in terms of the strategy from the particular venue. But when I was looking in London, as a bootstrap founder, I was being asked, looking at venues, they were £80,000. I didn't have that sort of money, and you had to put a good deposit down for that. So I ended up looking in Dublin, Ireland, and we looked at the venue, which is the RDS, which is the same venue that Web Summit used to run at. And the last Web Summit was in 2015, 2016. They had 40,000 people there. So this venue has real capacity to scale. And when I looked at this beautiful concert hall, which was the first sort of space that we were kind of booking, and hall 3, I got a quote of 10,000 euros, and I only had to put 1,000 down, right? And I was like, I can do that. And then, with the rest of it, obviously I'll just, sell tickets and I'll sell sponsorship and it'll cover my costs. I think that 10,000 ended up being nearer to 40,000 by the time of the conference because you've got to pay for certain things that you just didn't really realize that were kind of there. And if you want to use, any square inch of their property, you'll get charged for it. So there were a lot of things that I just wasn't aware of. And it ended up becoming quite expensive, certainly for the first time for me.
Oh, what's going on there, YouTube? Good to see you guys. Now imagine this. You love watching these interviews with SaaS founders, but imagine if we took all of the valuation data out from over 2,807 interviews I've done manually. Saves you a lot of time. Well, we've done this. We've built it into the beautiful interface inside of Founder Path. Check this out. I'll show you how you can access this in a second, but you log in, you connect your Stripe account, you see your valuation real time, you can see what it changed over the past 88 days, and even set goals for valuation this year. Now, the secret valuation is there's many different ways to value a SaaS business. So the reason you're going to see 3 or 4 different valuations inside of your Founder Path dashboard, this is all free by the way, is because depending on who's doing the buying of your SaaS company, you're going to get a different valuation. A VC is going to pay a different valuation. Private equity firm is different. If you're going to do a minority sale, that's different. And if you sell the whole business, that's a different valuation. You can see all those when I hover over here. Right, so the teal is what a VC would pay, yellow is what private equity, and red is if you sold the whole thing outright. Now, what's cool about this is not built off random data. Again, you guys hear these interviews on YouTube. All these data are built from real-time valuation data points founders share with us on the show. So traction, 1.2 million, seed round, 3.7 raise, they sold 22% of their business. Go in here and filter by the event. Maybe you only want to see companies that have sold the whole business. Well, here are a bunch that have been acquired, the valuation and the multiple. Maybe you're going out right now and you're raising your seed round. Well, go in here and look at all this recent seed deals that went down, what they raised, what valuation they raised at, and what percent that they sold. There's never been a larger data set of SaaS valuations than what you can get now inside of Founder Path, and we're thrilled to bring it to you. All right, we're going to go back to the YouTube video here in a second, but if you want to check this tool out, if you want to jump in and sign up, you can check it out for free to get your valuation at this link, founderpath.com/products/valuations. Or if you go to founderpath.com and hover over products, click on get your valuation here and go ahead and sign up to give it a whirl. Again, all that valuation data live right inside the platform. I hope to see you there. All right, let's jump back into the interview. Wait, so again, guys, I think a lot of you guys are SaaS founders listening, thinking about launching your own user conferences. There's a lot to learn here from Alex. So Alex, what were those $30K in surprise costs you didn't anticipate?
Oh my God, the list is as long as my arm. Like one big surprise cost actually was, so I started selling sponsorships, and my first 2 sponsorships the first one was to Chart Mogul. The second one, and I kind of pre-sold that one before the conference because Nick Franklin said, look, if you do this conference, we'll sponsor it. And so as soon as I had a venue and as soon as I think I had the date, before I had the website, I went to Nick and said, you said you would sponsor it. And he did. He kind of put his money where his mouth was. It was like 15,000 euros, I think, something like that, which is pretty good, right? And this is placing a bet on somebody that's never done anything like before. So it's a good bet. When we went live, surprise, surprise, the first person that kind of contacted me then was Patrick Campbell from Profitwell, Chart Mogul's competitor. And we ended up doing the deal on Christmas Eve with PC. But I'd sold all of these.
Same 15 grand.
I think they paid a little bit less, a little bit of a discount. But Patrick was a hard negotiator. And even doing the deal on Christmas Eve, I was like, come on, man, it's Christmas. I need the day off. But I was grateful to get the deal done because obviously that gave me extra runway. However, getting to the point, I sold all these packages and silver and gold and etc. What I didn't realize was I was selling these booths, and I had no idea what the cost of the booth was going to be until like 6 months later. So actually, on some of them, I lost money on some of the sponsorship deals that I made. So that was kind of a big, kind of kick in the teeth. And I tried in some cases to pass the cost on to the vendor, but in some cases they weren't amenable to that. So that was a bit of a learning. Certainly, maybe the biggest kind of like F up. I would say.
How many total sponsors did you end up with in 2016? Do you remember?
It was a pretty good amount. I want to say it was like over 30.
Wow.
And yeah, and the revenue was 50-50 with ticket sales for the first year. I think I had a good advantage in that I had 11 years sales experience. So and like given that I was, let's say, a solopreneur, back at that time, and very hungry and driven, I was every day doing outbound, and we didn't get much inbound, even though PC was an inbound. But I was just contacting everybody and managing to get some meetings and going out to meetings and closing deals, and so that that kind of really helped. So I was the first sales guy in the business until we got over $1 million in revenue, and then we made our first hire.
Interesting.
Sales
and
hire,
so,
that is, yeah.
Yeah. So going back to 2016 real quick, what was total revenue?
This is like 350,000 euros, roughly.
Okay. So like
Yeah.
175 from ticket sales, 700 tickets, and another 175 from 30 sponsors.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Interesting. And do you remember this must have been a celebration. Do you remember the largest sponsorship you sold in the first year?
Oof, I remember the largest one we didn't sell, but I mean the quick story there was obviously you've got these the different tiers, right? And you've got your top tiers, which is often like a diamond, or I think back then it was platinum. We started at 5K, and I think we went up to 60K for the first year. And we had no takers for the 60K, but at one point, Workable kind of had a look around at this, and they were thinking about being the lead sponsor. But I think they offered me like 30K for the 60K package, and I said no. I said, I'm not doing 50% discount, etc. And then a couple of months later, I went back to them and I said, "Oh, look, it doesn't look. Well, I didn't say it doesn't look like I'm going to shift this package, but how do you feel? Like, could we make it happen?" And they thought about it, but then at that point, they didn't have enough time to really execute against the biggest kind of like package because of, the resources and the planning they needed. So I kind of like, shit, I should have taken the money. But back then, obviously I didn't because I thought the discount was too much. But yeah,
you learned. That's incredible. Okay, so let's build the story out. So 2017, do you remember total attendees?
Total attendees 2017. So we pretty much doubled. It was just under 1,500. So it's like 1,400 and something. Yeah.
Yep. And sponsors?
Sponsors, we probably doubled again. And revenue, we tripled. I want to say, actually, maybe more than tripled.
So you broke $1 million second year.
Over $1 million, yeah, for the second year.
Yeah, and still 50-50 split?
Yeah, it's like almost, probably like 60-40, but in favor of partnerships. But revenue was, the split was fairly even.
Did you learn anything about those? I mean, the sponsor sales are what's key. It's basically your seed investment. Like, right, at any event company, your sponsor paying upfront is a seed investment. Do you learn anything going from 30 to 60 in your first year just about selling sponsorships in general?
I did learn, certainly it was a new sale for me. So I had to kind of really understand, the value proposition, what it was that, the customers were after. And obviously it was very good, from a cash flow perspective, because we could, sign up a partner like we did with ChartMogul 12 months ahead of the event, and get the cash in the bank, 11 months ahead of the event. And that kind of really helps you build the business on customer revenue, right? So definitely a strong model. Just trying to think, like, in terms of like the biggest learnings. I mean, I think maybe it's just kind of like
wait, Alex, let me be more specific. What's something that you threw in your sponsor media pack in 2017 that you didn't think sponsors would care about, and it ended up being the thing a lot of them cared about?
Good question. They didn't really care about tickets. I tell you that. That's sort of one thing, right? So you keep adding in. I was like, okay. I remember having a conversation with Intercom, and to try and make the deal more sweet with them, and they ended up not doing it. This was in 2016, and in principle, because they don't sponsor, or they at the time first time conferences, but they did sponsor in 2017. But I tried to get this deal, and I was chucking them like 25 tickets, 30 tickets, etc. And they're like, "Look, we don't really care. We don't want 25 people out of the office, not being productive." You could argue they could be productive, right? But certainly that was a big learning. Like, tickets was really not something that really kind of adds that much value. Speaking is what everybody kind of really wants, right? Yeah. And that was also sort of like big learning. And we and definitely for the first time to the conference, I was like, look, we're not paid to play, and we don't want to be full of sponsors. On stage, and you're wary about the editorial side of things, and our discerning customers, being pitched to, or kind of seeing like another sponsor up on stage. But I think it's one of these tricky things that I think every conference organizer needs to balance and manage, right? Because some of your sponsors are really adamant that, hey, they need to be speaking, but you've also got to be pretty like firm and fair that, well, look, these are our editorial guidelines, and you kind of need to stick to them. And if we are going to give you a speaking slot because you've got the credibility and great content, like, you just can't go in and start pitching your products. And they should know that anyway, because a product pitch will just like not go down well. But you still get those ones that kind of sneak through, even if you do the vetting and things like that. And some people just don't care, and the bigger companies, in some instances, just like don't really care and don't really listen.
You just don't invite them back.
Yeah, exactly.
So and then so over $1 million in revenue in 2017. Do you remember expenses?
In 2017, I don't fully sort of remember expenses, but like we were just above break even.
Cool. So like call it like 800, 900K in expenses, like 1.2 in revenue.
We over like again another lesson. Maybe across all the years, but certainly maybe not a lesson learned. But 2016, 2017, arguably we over invested for a young, even first time conference, right? So the first event we lost money, and the feedback, in real time from most people was like, this is better than what we expected, and maybe and people were saying, you've probably over invested in stage production, in sponsor booths and so on and so forth, and we had. And we work with a great production partner that we still work with, but they perhaps also like oversold me, and I kind of went for the best. You can have like this, you can have that in the middle, or you can have the best. And I was like, I want the best for my event, and that was the most expensive. And and then I was just confident that we'd be able to sell more and make a profit, and that kind of came back to bite me a little bit in the beginning.
Well, you've certainly grown it. Again, guys, if you're listening now going, wow, what a great origin story. You can see now the final product this year coming up in 3 or 4 weeks. Official start date October 16th, right? Dublin?
Yeah, October 17th. So probably, what is that, 5-6 weeks time. And yeah, like it's going to be our biggest one yet. We've had a 3-year hiatus because of COVID. So that's a weird thing. So SaaS Stock is 7 years old now, but for 3 years, we've actually not been able to run our flagship conference and our main, primary driver of revenue. So it's kind of a weird thing. So like I kind of say, well, are we actually 4 years old? But in a 7 years kind of time frame. But so we be weird, and we're going like 2019. We had 3,000 attendees, and we're going for 5,000 this year.
Oh, you had live 3,000 in 2019.
2019, 3,000. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Do you remember revenue then?
It was 2.9 million. And this is like in sterling, pound sterling, right?
Okay. 50-50 sponsors, tickets still?
No. It started to shift. The bigger you get, and certainly in our experience, and we've seen this in the market, the bigger you get, the more the revenue tends to shift towards sponsorships versus tickets. Because as you kind of scale, there's a blend of like tickets coming in through paid tickets, through partners, through some, complimentary for scholarships and things like that, and media and so on and so forth. So you start to see that shift towards more like a 70-30 split towards partnerships.
And in that, when you did your last full year, when you did in 2019, 2.9 million revenue, do you remember total expenses that year?
It was quite a bit, maybe like 2.2, something like that.
Wow. Okay. So still profitable, break even. Which was the biggest expenses? Is it just venue or booth construction or something else?
Venue is a big one. We're talking like 6 figures, and then just overall production. So we work with a production company, Catapult. They're great. You know them, and each year we've actually signed up a 3-year partnership with Catapult, worth over 1.5 million with them and to them at a minimum. That's kind of always our biggest expense. And maybe in 2019, we spent about 750, 800K with them, something like that.
Yep. And the venue is 6 figures. I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised the venue isn't 7 figures. You got that whole venue for under $1 million.
Yeah. It's because I guess it's also like the space. We definitely did get it for under $1 million. And I guess kind of like good pricing in Dublin. But we buy the space in various sort of like blocks, and so that we could scale this to 40,000, in the future. But in terms of the rooms that we book, it's been, I'd say, fairly good value for money, even though it's a big expense. But comparative to, let's say, what folks are paying in the US, and it's pretty good value for money.
Silly what we pay to do an event in New York compared to what you can get in RDS.
New York's crazy.
Yeah, 2022, again, you're expecting 5,000 this year. Now, look, one thing people always wonder is, hey, how many of these are sort of tickets to minorities, scholarships, partners, et cetera, versus sort of paid? What is that usual break? Like, what do you anticipate that being this year?
Yeah, so this year we're probably looking at something like 10 to 15%, which will be scholarships, complimentary tickets. We're looking at diversity and inclusion tickets. We're looking at founders with zero revenue. Founders that are less than I think sort of like 250K in ARR and so on. And so we get a number through that. Then we kind of like look at like media passes and other kind of avenues.
You don't think you'll do about 4,000 in paid tickets?
Well, yeah, but there's also like partners. So if you look at, we've got a huge from a partner side of things in the main hall, we're going to have about 75, 80 partners, which are, let's say, are the kind of the AB kind of tier partners, bigger company names, right? We're talking companies like Intercom and ChargeBee and FounderPath and so on, right? And then we've got our startup program, which will be another 150 companies in the startup program. And through partners, you're probably doing 1,000 plus tickets as well. So from a sales side, I would say that we're looking at probably about 2,500 or maybe 2,800 paid. Plus the 1,000 plus partners, plus speakers, plus your media passes, plus your comps, etc., and it all kind of adds up to just over 5,000.
Now you're diversifying. Before we wrap up here, talk to me a little bit more about this founder membership concept you guys have launched. What do people get if they buy that?
Yeah, good question. So what we're building with the SaaS.founder membership is we're trying to build, the world's leading support organization for B2B SaaS founders. So it's a bit like a YPO or an EO for SaaS, but it's purely focused on B2B SaaS founders that are on their journey from 0 to 10 million. So you get peer groups, support groups, like monthly mastermind. You get to build out a global network of SaaS founders and some networking events, and you get specific education. So beyond the usual SaaS content, whether that's through our podcasts or conferences, we bring in experts. Like we've got Dave Kellogg coming up in a couple of weeks. He's coming in to do a workshop on scaling into the US. Wow. And so we leverage our network of these great people to come in and run these sessions. Additionally, we get things like the SaaS Founder Member annual retreat, which you came to, in Amalfi, and we bring founders together. Incredible. Yeah, to come together for a couple of days to kind of network, do roundtables, learn from each other, and learn from mentors and those that are a few steps ahead. So founders can't go it alone, right? And some do, right? You do have solo founders. So we're looking at really, whether you're bootstrapped, solo founder, or VC backed, to kind of get you that support from other founders to really kind of help you, make better decisions, get more confidence in terms of what you're doing, and help you grow to 10 million ARR faster.
Very cool. Last question before we wrap up. You always feature up and coming founders, your startup program. If you had to pick, I'm going to ask you to pick a baby. Pick one of them, that's speaking this year that you're just like, wow, these guys in 5 years, they're the next Intercom.
Good question. Like off the top of my head, let's go with Expandy, Stefan Smolders. I think he's speaking at your event. Yep. They've got to 7 million ARR in like 2.5 years, bootstrapped, doing something right. And off the top of my head, Stefan Smolders.
Guys, check it out. SaaSdoc.com. Grab tickets quickly. They're almost sold out. The event's coming up. I'll be there. If you're there, text me 703-431-2709. We'll spend some time together. Obviously, Alex, you're about to go into hunker down mode with all the last minute details associated with events. We're rooting for you, man. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Nathan. There's also a code for your users. Latka 30 will give you a 30% discount.
Boom. LATKA 30.
Yeah.
All right, guys, go buy it. Go use that bad boy up. We appreciate it. Alex, thanks so much. See you soon.
Thanks, Nathan.
One more thing before you go. We have a brand new show every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's called Shark Tank for SaaS. We call it Deal or Bust. One founder comes on, 3 hungry buyers, they try and do a deal live, and the founder shares back-end dashboards, their expenses, their revenue, ARPU, CAC, LTV, you name it, they share it. And the buyers try and make a deal live. It is fun to watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central. Additionally, remember, these recorded founder interviews go live. We release them here on YouTube every day at 2 p.m. Central. To make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube, the big red button, and then click the little bell notification to make sure you get notifications when we do go live. I wouldn't want you to miss breaking news in the SaaS world, whether it's an acquisition, a big fundraise, a big sale, a big profitability statement, or something else. I don't want you to miss it. Additionally, if you want to take this conversation deeper and further, we have by far the largest private Slack community for B2B SaaS founders. You want to get in there. We've probably talked about your tool if you're running a company, or your firm if you're investing. You can go in there and quickly search and see what people are saying. Sign up for that at nathanlatka.com/Slack. In the meantime, I'm hanging out with you here on YouTube. I'll be in the comments for the next 30 minutes. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up. We get a lot of haters that are mad at how aggressive I am on these shows, but I do it so that we can all learn. We have to counter those people. We got to push them away. Click the thumbs up below to counter them, and know that I appreciate your guys' support. All right, I'll be in the comments. See ya.